far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here. I'd like, Mr. Chairman, you generally like to have us be able to get answers, to know, and we'll follow up with the QFR, and to the extent Patel wants to answer, that would be great as well. What happened to the $50,000? Did Homan keep it? Did the FBI get it back? If he kept it, did he put it on his tax returns? Pretty simple questions. Homan was the same guy who said there was a deal with Eric Adams. He said, if Adams doesn't come through, I'll be back. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to? Which brings us to the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bove, because he was also involved in that transaction. Yeah. What became of the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bove? Yeah,
Senator Whitehouse, to correct you for one moment, that would be the Honorable Judge Emil J. Bove III to you.
Not at the time of this. He was an employee of the Department of Justice. And what became of the OPR investigation?
It's all pending litigation, Senator. I can't discuss pending litigation nor personnel matters.
OPR customarily publicly says when there's an investigation, and at the end of it, they provide a summary. Why can't you say whether there's an OPR investigation and whether, if it's concluded, there's a summary?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
Even public ones?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
So, Kash Patel told this committee that his grand jury testimony after immunization, after initially pleading the Fifth, was, and I quote, sealed by the Department of Justice. How and when and why was his testimony sealed, and by whom?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss any testimony, especially testimony that could be sealed with you.
No, the question is, was it or was it not sealed?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss that with you.
Well, he also said that he worked with the Department of Justice to have his transcript released publicly. How and when was his transcript released? Presumably, if he released it publicly, that's something you can discuss because it's public.
Well, Senator, I believe you discussed that with Director Patel.
And I'm asking you because he said the Department of Justice made this decision and you run the Department of Justice.
I would refer that to Director Patel.
Even though you run the Department of Justice and he testified that the Department of Justice released his transcript publicly.
If it is released publicly, we will get you a copy, Senator, gladly.
If, being a rather important word there, when your FBI director testified that that was a fact. Treasury compiles suspicious activity reports, referred to often as SARs, that DOJ receives automatically. Hundreds related to accounts of Jeffrey Epstein. How many of those Treasury SARs did you or Director Patel investigate?
Senator, I'm not sure if you're concerned because you took money, I believe, did you, from Reid Hoffman, one of Epstein's closest confidants, not only once but twice in 2018 and 2024, if that's correct. But, Senator, did you ask Merrick Garland any of this over the last 4 years when he sat before you? This investigation has been going on. This investigation was closed. Did you ask Alex Acosta that?
And Patel came to office, you said you would look into this. There were hundreds of suspicious activity reports. Some people would deduce from the fact that they are called suspicious activity reports that there might be suspicious activity. And yet you seem to have looked at zero of those suspicious activity reports involving Jeffrey Epstein accounts. Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that? Okay. Here's what well, no, we cut to something else. The Marshal Service is supposed to protect our federal judges. I have asked repeatedly for the Marshal Service to let me know if they are investigating or being inhibited from investigating whether or not there is orchestration of threats against federal judges, whether under either conspiracy laws or racketeering enterprise laws or aiding and abetting laws, whatever. But as you know, there's the person who says the threat, and then there may very well be somebody orchestrating the threat behind them. Is the Marshal Service allowed to investigate orchestration of threats, and do you know if they've taken one step to do so?
May I answer the question, Chairman Grassley? The time has expired.
I think it's the convention of the committee that if I've started my question in my time, you may answer the question.
I was asking the chairman.
Okay, before I go to Cornyn.
She wants to answer the question, Chairman.
Oh, please go ahead. I thought you said you didn't want to answer it.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
sir. Thank you. Senator Whitehouse, I would be happy to sit down with you regarding any threat to any federal judge in this country. We take threats very seriously. I will set a meeting with you, with Director Serralta of the U.S. Marshals, and I will be there. And we will talk about any threats on federal judges.
Including orchestration.
Who threaten them.
Whitehouse pushed hard for answers, noting that when something carries the label suspicious, it deserves real scrutiny, especially in a case as layered as this one. But instead of walking through the details, Bondi shifted focus quickly, bringing up donations and past connections involving the senator himself. She mentioned Reid Hoffman, someone linked to Epstein through meetings over the years, and suggested Whitehouse had taken contributions from him more than once. Whitehouse pushed back on that claim later, but in the moment, the hearing turned into a back and forth that left everyone watching wondering who was really dodging what. That deflection set the tone for much of the session. Those SARs weren't just paperwork. Financial records from that era showed massive wire transfers connected to Epstein and his circle, sometimes totaling over $1 billion across thousands of transactions, according to various reviews. Banks filed these alerts because something looked off, whether it involved moving money through offshore setups or dealings that raised flags for potential laundering or hidden activities. For years, Epstein operated with connections that reached high places, and these reports sat there as potential breadcrumbs. Yet the senator highlighted a frustrating reality. Despite promises of thorough reviews when new leadership took over, it seemed like zero progress showed on digging into them. This was an abstract policy talk. It touched on why so many Americans feel skeptical when elite networks appear shielded from the same rules everyone else faces. Whitehouse kept circling back, asking directly if anyone at the top levels had examined these alerts. The lack of clear numbers or updates only fueled more curiosity about what might still be buried in those files. From there, The conversation moved to even more specific claims that have circulated in public reports for some time. Whitehouse referenced witness accounts where Epstein allegedly showed people photographs of President Trump with half-naked young women, using them to boast about his access and influence. He asked point-blank whether the FBI, during searches of Epstein's properties, safes, or other locations, ever recovered anything like those described images. Bondi called the line of questioning salacious and accused the senator of trying to slander the president. She redirected again to political points, but the moment lingered because it tapped into lingering mysteries around Epstein's web of relationships. Public reporting on this has been out there, with some witnesses describing how Epstein brandished such materials to impress or intimidate others. Whether those exact photos turn up remains unclear from official statements in the hearing, and that's part of what keeps the story alive. Officials have released millions of pages from Epstein-related investigations under transparency laws, including videos and images, but gaps in redactions continue to spark debate. Questions persist about what was found, what wasn't pursued, and how connections across parties might influence priorities. It's the kind of detail that makes people lean forward, wondering how deep the influence really went and why full clarity still feels elusive even years later. Bondi's responses throughout showed a pattern that many viewers recognize from other high-stakes hearings. When pressed on substance, the pivot to whataboutism came fast, referencing actions or inactions from previous administrations and tying opponents to similar associations. She noted that Whitehouse and others hadn't grilled prior Attorney General Merrick Garland with the same intensity during his time. This back and forth highlighted how quickly accountability discussions can turn partisan, with each side accusing the other of selective outrage. Yet Whitehouse stayed locked on the data points, the SARS, the potential evidence, refusing to let the conversation drift too far. That persistence mattered because it underscored a bigger issue. When those tasked with enforcing the law face questions about their own efforts, deflection can erode public confidence faster than any single revelation. People following the Epstein case have seen file releases, court documents, and statements promising openness, only for new hearings like this to reveal how much still feels unresolved. The financial trails alone suggest a network that thrived on complexity and connections, and ignoring alerts like those SARS raises valid concerns about whether justice applies evenly or bends toward the influential. As the hearing progressed, Whitehouse broadened the scope to threats against federal judges and the role of the U.S. Marshal Service. He asked whether investigators could look into not just direct threats, but possible orchestration behind them, perhaps involving coordinated efforts or racketeering angles. Bondi responded by offering to sit down for a meeting with the senator and the Marshal's director to discuss protections and any ongoing probes. This part provided a brief pause in the sharper clashes, showing agreement on the seriousness of safeguarding the judiciary amid rising concerns. Threats to judges have increased in recent years, with the marshals handling hundreds of cases involving potential harm or intimidation tied to controversial rulings. In a polarized environment, where court decisions on major issues draw intense backlash, ensuring impartial investigations into these dangers becomes crucial. The offer to meet signaled at least some willingness to address operational details, even as the earlier Epstein questions lingered unanswered. It reminded viewers that behind the political drama, real-world safety for those upholding the law remains an ongoing challenge that crosses party lines. Stepping back, this hearing captured something larger about the state of trust in American institutions. When powerful figures and vast sums of money intersect with figures like Epstein, the public naturally wants straight answers rather than sidesteps. The SARS represent concrete records that could illuminate patterns, yet their handling, or lack thereof, fuels speculation about protection for the connected. Similarly, the photo claims, while framed through witness reports and not presented as settled fact, tap into deeper unease about how influence operated in those circles. Releases of Epstein materials have brought forward millions of pages, videos, and other evidence, painting a picture of extensive harm and networks that touched elites across sectors. But repeated hearings and FOIA pushes show that full transparency remains a work in progress, with debates over redactions and uncharged individuals keeping skepticism high. What Whitehouse exposed in real time was how easily oversight can stall when loyalty or politics enters the room. Instead of collaborative fact-finding, exchanges often devolve into scoring points, leaving citizens to piece together the truth from fragments. The Epstein story has always blended shocking details with uncomfortable questions about accountability. From his documented associations to the financial web that supported his activities, the case reveals how systems can fail when vigilance slips. Recent developments, including court-mandated releases and congressional scrutiny, have added layers, but they also highlight inconsistencies. Some officials previously suggested certain lists or key information sat ready for review, only for later statements to clarify limitations or absences. This flip-flopping adds to the mystery and drives engagement because people sense there's more beneath the surface. Bondi's tenure and the current administration's approach face tests like this hearing, where demands for updates on old cases meet defenses rooted in past shortcomings. The result leaves audiences reflecting on whether true reform happens or if cycles of accusation simply repeat. Whitehouse's focus on data, the reports, the searches, the threats, serve as a reminder that oversight isn't about personal attacks, but about ensuring the Department of Justice pursues every legitimate lead without fear or favor. Beyond the personalities, the hearing touched on the slow erosion of faith when justice appears conditional. Citizens watch these moments and wonder, if hundreds of flags on high-profile accounts go unexamined, what does that say about everyday cases? If questions about recovered evidence meet immediate redirection, how can full public confidence return? These aren't easy issues, and the partisan nature of the responses only complicates them further. Yet hearings like this play a vital role, forcing sunlight on processes that might otherwise stay hidden. The Marshals' discussion, while less combative, reinforced that protecting the rule of law requires constant effort, especially when threats rise in heated times. Overall, the session peeled back layers of political theater to show the human stakes. Survivors seeking closure, the public demanding fairness, and leaders navigating immense pressure. In wrapping up the key takeaways, this confrontation between Whitehouse and Bondi stands out as a vivid example of accountability in action, even when